Joséphine was not the founder of the estate, but was certainly the one who shaped Yquem as we know it today. She was a visionary woman who first started to do this selective harvest where we pass several times in the same vineyard, as we were saying before, only focusing on quality, and who also created the brand itself, the label as we know it. She's the only probably person in this more than 400 years of history that we can talk about a before and after, because after her we have just continued her vision up until today, and I hope for the next 400 years.
Welcome to another episode of On the Road Edition, hosted by Stevie Kim. Each week, Stevie travels to incredible wine destinations, interviewing some of the Italian wine scene's most interesting personalities, talking about wines, the foods, as well as the incredible travel destinations.
Welcome back. My name is Stevie Kim and welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. And we are still in Bordeaux. Actually, we're in Sauternes, which is the Sauternes. Chateau Kim, the iconic winery of this area. It's very exciting and we have a surprise for you. So there is an Italian element to all this, and that is Lorenzo Pasquini.
Hello,
applause,
everybody.
applause. Because he is now, I believe, the state manager and the technical director.
Yes.
So kind of the big boss.
No.
Well, below
part
Pierre.
of the part of a team and below Pierre, of course.
Yeah. Of this magnificent winery, Chateau Kim. So, Lorenzo, I don't know where to start because,
First of all,
un ragazzo fortunato, as they say in Italian.
Absolutely. I'm very lucky, very privileged. Well, there was already an Italian element here because the Lure-Salus family, the previous owners, their name comes from Lure, which is the German branch, and Salus, which comes from Saluzzo in Italy now. So there was already a little bit of Italy here.
Oh, okay. But so, you're incredibly young, so we can say...
Thank you for that.
He looks older, but he's only 34.
35.
35, yes, a lot older. So how did you become to this place with this very important role at such an early age? Tell us a little bit about yourself to our audience who are less familiar.
Indeed, I'm very lucky, extremely privileged to have this opportunity. I was the winemaker in Argentina at Cheval des Andes for 4 years, which is also overviewed by Pierre Lurton, who founded the estate in 1999. And I was there for 4 vintages. And at some point, I wanted to come back to Europe, get closer to my family. And some years later, Pierre called me back and said, look, my right arm at the estate is retiring. I'm looking for someone that I trust. And this is how he gave me this opportunity. And I was, of course, extremely, happy and privileged and absolutely honored to accept.
Yeah, you were pretty much fast-tracked to this role. I suppose that was Pierre.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So I do these series called 5 Things About This Wine in social media. But let's do this. Tell us 5 must-know things about Chateau Kim.
Great. Chateau Kim is a lot of things. So to resume in 5, it will be a little bit
Everyone says that.
You're
not very original. Everybody says that.
But first of all, Yquem and Sauternes in general is based on a natural paradox, on somehow of a natural miracle that it's called the noble rot, which is the transformation of the worst enemy of viticulture, called the Botrytis cinerea, the gray rot, that transforms, thanks to natural microclimatic conditions, into something that we call the noble rot, which is the capacity of Botrytis to bring the grapes to a second life, a second level of concentration, aromatic expression, and also capacity to travel through time. These wines are very expressive when they are very young, but they can also live almost for centuries, more than 1 century. They really have an extended relationship with time. And this is only based on natural conditions. So probably that's the first thing that we should know when we talk about Yquem. and Sauternes in general.
So that was just number one. Number two.
And the second is that Yquem is an estate with an incredible human history. It's an estate that was founded in 1593 and that was for 400 years within the same family that changed name from Sauvage, that was the name of family that founded the estate, into Lursalus when Françoise Joséphine de Sauvage married Amédée de Lursalus in 1785, and then it stayed within the Lursalus family until 1999. So 400 years of constant propriety under the same family, and this probably rooted some deep values and a strong vision of the estate, and that's the other, I would say, particular thing of Château d'Yquem.
Number three.
We are at a very lucky placement in a certain way because we are here at the border between two geological eras, and so our terroir is extremely diversified. We have gravels, clay, sand, limestone, and at the base of the complexity and the balance of the wine, there is this incredible complexity of terroir of our 100 hectares of vineyards.
Numero cuatro.
Our number four, our production is extremely low. In average, we make with one vine only one glass of wine.
Yeah, I thought that was like a myth. So that's actually true.
Yes. In general, with one vine, you can make 1 to 2 bottles. Here, with one vine, we make only one glass. Because our way of harvesting is extremely selective. We only take the grapes or the part of the grapes that are attacked by the noble rot, which means that we lose a lot of volume by the concentration, but also that we have to select a lot. We have to reject a lot of grapes that can be attacked by other microorganisms, and that's why the yield shrivels extremely, and we produce this very small amount of this wine that I believe is pretty spectacular. And finally, I would say that, as I was saying before, our wines have an extended relationship with time. They can travel through time like any other wine, and sometimes we get to taste wines with more than 100 years of age, and it's an incredible experience to witness to wines with such a longevity. But also, they can be very expressive in their youth. Today we tasted 2022, that it's our youngest vintage possible, which is already very drinkable, very approachable. And I think that's very spectacular to have wine that can at the same time be very ageable but also very drinkable when they are very young.
So you gave me this tasting note today from the vintage 2022, and I'd like to quote what it says. A crazy year, a crazy vintage, which is literally extraordinary, opening up a new interpretation of the meaning of time at Yquem. So this was not an easy vintage.
Not at all. It was the driest and hottest vintage ever recorded at the estate, 22. Maybe it's an image of what will be the climate with the climate change. So, of course, we were very worried about these conditions. We were actually asking ourselves whether we would make any Yquem or not with these conditions. And actually, we were extremely surprised when we saw the final result, because the wine is extremely powerful and yet so restrained, so delicate, so just, and so in the line of what we envision when we make the blend of Yquem, which is aromatic brightness, balance, and persistency. And I think 22 expressed that with power in a very nice way.
And you said something about the bitterness.
Yes.
So tell us about the bitterness that kind of salvaged, right, the low acidity in this vintage.
Bitterness is the key word in Sauternes, and even more in 2022. Sometimes we tend to simplify the balance of a Sauternes between sugar and acid, thinking that the sugar is the base and the acidity is what gives the freshness.
That's what we learn at WSET.
And I would say that is not untrue, but it's probably incomplete, meaning that here there are two other dimensions that are probably as important, if not more important, which are the salinity, what we call in Italian la sapidità, that comes a lot with our clay terroirs, and the bitterness, which is really what gives all the dynamicity to the sugar, what makes almost the sugar disappear and become only the base of something that is much more than sweet. And in 22, it was extremely important to play on what we say in French, les beaux amers, the good bitters, because we didn't have any acidity, or we have, let's say, a very low acidity due to the conditions of the year. And so in order to find the balance, to find the drinkability, the silkiness, and the freshness, it was extremely important to play on both the tannins, because also in a white wine, like a Sauternes, you can have a little bit of tannins, and the bitterness, indeed.
Lastly, as a bonus question, I think for the young Italian winemakers out there, you're kind of a success story to them, right?
No.
So yes, let's be honest. So, things are not always easy in Italy. Do you have a recommendation? Would you advise them if they are less than happy or frustrated? Do you recommend them to go abroad and have other experiences? Or how would you advise a young winemaker who is a little less sure of himself? And these are challenging times for wine in general. So what kind of advice as a big brother would you give them?
It's the first time that I get to answer this question, because I don't feel at all as someone in the position to give an advice to someone else. So what I could say is just to follow his own belief. I think what's most important when you make this job is to understand who you are, what kind of wines do you like, which are your values, and don't betray them, and try to express that every day in what you do. And I think the wine is a wonderful way to also express values, environmental values, social values, taste values, and probably this will pay off at a certain moment. But once again, I don't feel that I can give any advice, but that would be at least my credo.
And so before we close, I got a book from Lorenzo today, and it's about Joséphine de Kim, A Remarkable Woman, A Legendary Wine. And this has been recently translated into English. So tell us about who was Joséphine de Kim.
Joséphine was not the founder of the estate, because she came in at the end of the 18th century when the estate was already 200 years old, but was certainly the one who shaped Yquem as we know it today. She's the one who probably rooted and installed all these values and this vision that we continue, that we keep today. And she was a visionary woman who first started to do this selective harvest, where we pass several times in the same vineyard, as we were saying before, only focusing on quality, and who also created the brand itself, the label as we know it, who started to also spread the word about Yquem around the world, while she was living a very tough life, losing her parents, her husband, her children, and dedicating his life to Yquem, also during the French Revolution. That was a very complex time here in France, and so she is someone that we owe a lot to, because once again, she's the only probably person in this more than 400 years of history that we can talk about a before and after, because after her we have just continued her vision up until today, and I hope for the next 400 years.
It sounds like Lorenzo has already read this book. I am looking forward to reading this book, because it's like the story of Madame Clicquot, right? Almost.
It's certainly an incredible story. I think very inspirational for a lot of people, yeah, at least for us.
Okay. Would you like to say anything before we close?
I would
Any
say,
last words from Chateau Yquem?
That I hope that I will be able to receive all of you here at
Don't
Yquem.
say that. They might
whenever
all
you
come
want.
here.
The doors are Yquem are wide open. We're happy to receive. I hope that you will have a glass of Yquem 22 or other vintages, and you will share a wonderful moment around a glass of Yquem. And viva il vino! And
with that, it's a wrap. Italian Wine Podcast, coming live from Chateau Yquem with Lorenzo Pasquini. Ciao ragazzi.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of On the Road Edition, hosted by Stevie Kim. Join her again next week for more interesting content on the Italian wine scene. You can also find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. You can check out our YouTube channel, Mama Jumbo Shrimp, to watch these interviews and the footage captured at each location. Chin chin!